Let me know if y'all can hear me. Say, type in there, type in the message. If y'all can hear me in the live chat, let me know. Let me see what we got. I see one person online. I see Kanaya, Israel. I'm just trying to see 29 people listening. All praises, all praises. I'll go ahead on and get started here real quick. All praises, all praises. All right, y'all. All right, so, those who taking notes, whoever take notes, I know some of y'all might be at work trying to get it in, hey, getting the plantation. Hey, it is what it is. But this is Genesis chapter 18, and we're going to start at verse 1. I got some little titles for the chapters. This is Genesis chapter 18. This is Abraham entertained 3 angels, okay? He entertained 3 angels. So, 3 angels came to visit him, 3, heavenly beings. So we're going to see what took place here in history. All right, so Genesis chapter 18 and verse 1, it said, and the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, right? And he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day, right? So now it's hot, let you know the time frame of the day. You know how it is here. I'm in the South. I'm here in North Carolina. Hey, it's hot as I don't know it around like 12, 1, 2, 3, whatever. In the evening it's hot. You know what I'm saying? That sun be out there scorching. So this is around probably that same time frame. You know what I'm saying, when the angels came to visit Abraham, right? So he mentioned, he said he's in the plains of Mamre. So let's find out real quick. Where are the plains of Mamre? I got a little map and stuff I want to show y'all real quick. I don't know if y'all can see. If you can see here in the little area where I'm talking about, what we're going to be looking at is, let's see here. I want to say it's in the red color or something. Somewhere in that range real quick. So we're going to go to a precept here. We're going to go to Genesis chapter 13 and verse 8. Well, I'm sorry. Genesis chapter 13 and verse 2. All right, so this is the book of Genesis chapter 13, and let me make sure I'm in the right chapter real quick. I saw it earlier. Okay, 13 and 8 and 18. All right, it says, then Abraham removed his tent and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord. So, as we can see, if you look in there, you'll see that area called Hebron. That's in red, right? It's located, it's in the red, it's right under a red arrow. And you'll see where he journeyed, where he traveled at. So the map I got, that I'm using is called Abraham's Journey in Canaan, okay? The land of Canaan is what was changed into the land of Israel, okay? This is where the Most High gave us our plots of inheritance, which you'll read about in the book of Joshua, all right? So, so this is where Mamre. It was called Mamre then, but Mamre is in Hebron, okay, for those who don't know. So we go back here to Genesis chapter 18, verse 1. And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, which is in Hebron. And he sat in the tent of the door in the heat of the day, right? So it's hot outside, broad daylight, right? And like early in the day. So verse 2, and he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when they saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself toward the ground. Right, so he gave them, he went to worship. He said, hey, Christ was amongst one of those angels. Because you hear when he speak, he said, hey, Lord, he knew who they were. You know what I'm saying, as he came to visit. So. We're going to go to Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 2 here real quick, just to let you know. The book of Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 2, bear with me. Got to give my Bible all to up. So Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 2 lets us know, we start at verse 1. It says, let brotherly love continue, right? You gotta have that brotherly love. It says, be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware, right? Because like you said, sometimes we may be at different places in our life, you know, some things, some situations might have happened. Some things we can't explain, you know. We don't know, hey, that could have been an angel. Or we could meet a brother in the body or a sister in the body, you know what I'm saying? You want to make sure you treat those how you want to be treated. You love your brother how you want to be loved. That's your neighbor, you know what I'm saying? It's really your people. So you don't want to be treating nobody wrong and doing them bad, hey, because you don't know, that might be an angel, you know what I'm saying? You see that in the book of Tobit as well. You know, he had entertained an angel, and they didn't know that was an angel, but they still treat that brother, you know, like how they wanted to be treated. So that's what that goes into. All right, so we're gonna read on, read that verse again. So this is Genesis chapter 18, verse 2. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself toward the ground. Okay, so he's there getting ready to entertain the angels, right? Verse 3, and said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. So he's letting, he's like, hey, if you come here to visit, Lord, hey, stay here, have some company here. I'm going to be able to serve you. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to take care of you. Just like how we supposed to have hospitality. That's what this is here is going into. All right, let you know, bishop must be blameless, and he got to be apt to hospitality. What's a bishop? A leader, So that's something that we got to have, but it tells you apt to hospitality, because a lot of people, how we brought up, some people are brought up, they don't have hospitality, amongst them. They don't have that hospitality. Okay. All right. So get back to here. I forgot I had the picture still up. It says, verse 4, it said, let a little water, I pray you, be fetched and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree, right? It says, let you know you can rest yourself under the tree, relax. I'm saying, I'm going to take care of you. Verse 5, and I will fetch a morsel of bread and comfort ye your hearts. After that, ye shall pass on. After that, you can leave, go about your business, but in the meantime, I want to make sure I can, take care of you, I can feed you, entertain you. For therefore are ye come to your servant. And they said, so do as thou hast said, So that's what the Lord and the angels told him, hey, you go ahead and do what you say you're going to do there, Abraham. All right. So verse 6, it says, and Abraham hastened into the tent unto Sarah. Now he's going to our foremother Sarah, right? And said, make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, he says, and knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth, right? So, well, that's going into here real quick. I got in my notes right here. Let me see here real quick. Verse 6, we was talking about knead. Knead means make dough with your hands. How you see when people make pizza or they make bread and they got on something hard and they just using their hands to with the water and the flour, what I'm saying, to make the dough with the hands. Hearth is like a brick, stone, or concrete or wood, hard, like a wood area hard surface, or like a granite or something. Something where how you just mush that bread in there to get it right, to get it the right texture. Okay, that dough. Alrighty, so verse 7, and Abraham ran into the herd and fetched a calf tender and good and gave it unto a young man, and he hasted to dress it. Now, so he got that calf, he went and found that calf that was nice and right and fat, full of meat, you know what I'm saying? He said, hey, he told his servant, go out there, I need you to dress that thing, go ahead on and, kill it, skin it, take the hide off and everything, get it right, get it ready, you know what I'm saying? So that the women can go ahead on and get that thing right. Okay. All right. So verse 8, and he took butter and milk and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. You know what I'm saying? So they got that thing ready. So and they ate. You know what I'm saying? They had a good time to eat. You know what I'm saying? Just like how we go eat lamb or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Or we may be at a barbecue or cookout, you know what I'm saying, with family. I'm talking about eating clean food, okay? Not no hog and no pork, that stuff that we used to eat back in the days, you know what I'm saying, when we was not, keeping the commandments. Excuse me. Verse 9, and they said unto him, where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. So I'm going to come back to you. Why? Because he's letting you know, something's about to take place here. And lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him. So he's letting you know his wife, she's old, you know what I'm saying? And letting her know she gonna be pregnant, and y'all gonna have a child, okay? So now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of woman. So let you know, Sarah had she had already went through menopause already, and she's old, you know what I'm saying? Stricken of age, at this time, I want to say she probably about, let's say she's probably about 89 or something like that, around that time frame. She's like 10 years younger than Abraham. Abraham, I think he's like 99 during this time. All right, so in verse 11, let's see. I got a precept. We're gonna go to Genesis chapter 17 and verse 17 real quick. So we'll find out what they're saying here real quick. So this Genesis chapter 17 verse 17 says, then Abraham fell upon his face and laughed and said in his heart, shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old, and shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? So they saying to themselves like, I'm old as I don't know. I'm gonna have me a son at my old age, and his wife, she like, man, I'm about to have me a female after my menopause, after my, after me, not, I don't have periods and stuff no more. That's what she's saying. And so I'm gonna have me a woman. I'm gonna have me a child at that age, right? All right. So let's read on down. Verse 12. This is back Genesis chapter 18, verse 12. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord, being old also. You know what I'm saying? So she's saying the same thing what we just read in Genesis chapter 17. And the Lord said unto Abraham, wherefore did Sarah laugh? Like why Sarah in the tent laughing? Saying, shall I surely bear a child which am old? So the Lord, he can read our mind and everything, right? Verse 14, is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed, I will return unto thee according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. You know what I'm saying? That's what the Lord said. That's what's going to take place. What's going to happen? How I say it's going to happen, it's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? So with that, we're going to go to Jeremiah chapter 32 and verse 17 precept right here. Jeremiah 32 and 17 real quick. Bear with me, y'all. Got to flip through these pages. So the book of Jeremiah chapter 32 and verse 17. It says, Lord God, behold, thou hast made the heavens and the earth by the great power and stretched out arm, and there is nothing too hard for thee. That's what the Lord said. Nothing too hard for me. I can do anything. You know what I'm saying? Anything I want. anything I need done, I can make that happen. I can make this miracle come to pass off of what I said. That's what the Most High was, making a surety to Abraham and to his wife Sarah. Okay. Alrighty, so we'll jump down to let me see. I'll go back and read that verse again in Genesis 18 to 14. Is anything too hard for thee? If anything too hard for the Lord, at the time appointed, I will return unto the according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Right, verse 15. Right, hey, this is all of us. We would probably say this the first thing come to mind. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laugh not. I didn't laugh, Lord. For she was afraid. We're gonna be scared too. You know what I'm saying? And he said, nay. He said, no. He said, but thou didst laugh. That's what the Lord said. Nah, you laugh. I heard you. But it's all good. Don't worry about it. Don't be scared. All right, verse 16. And the men rose up from thence and looked toward Sodom, right? And Abraham went with them to bring them on the way, right? So now they're looking at in in the in the field, they could see from where they're at. You know what I'm saying? Because this area was kind of like some mountains and valleys and stuff like that, so they can kind of see everything at that particular time. I'm gonna pull up that map again. Bear with me real quick. Let me transition this real quick. I forgot. I guess y'all couldn't see the map. I thought y'all was able to see it at first, but just to backtrack. If y'all look over here, you'll see in the red where the red circle is. That. So let's say that area, the area of Mamre, right? What I was talking about. You read in verse 1 in chapter 18. You see Hebron, right, which is right there with the. I guess that's. Let me see. It might be black or whatever, but you see Hebron and Gerar. I think it's Gerar, but Hebron, that town. That is Mamre, okay? What we read about Mamre, that's what it was called. Hebron, okay, was changed to that. And and so now they looking over towards Sodom, you know what I'm saying? Looking over past the Dead Sea. You'll see the Dead Sea here, that water, that body of water right there, and you'll see where it says Moab. So Sodom and Gomorrah is right there in that area, pretty much in the middle of what do you call it? Hold on one second. Y'all bear with me real quick. I want to make sure somebody sent me a message. I want to make sure y'all can see me and hear me. All right. Hold on one second. What did I get here? Make sure I didn't fall out. All right. Okay. All right. Now it was just a mess. I thought somebody screenshot me or something. Was showing me that I thought it might have went out or something. But anyways, back to the lesson. So they looking down there towards Sodom and Gomorrah, right? So I'm gonna get back here to the where I left off at here real quick. So verse 16, it says, "And the man rose up from thence and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on the way," right? "And the Lord said, Shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do?" So now he mentioned that he's talking to the other two angels amongst that was amongst the Lord there. You know what I'm saying, with Abraham. He said, "Shall I hide this thing from him?" He said, "I'm gonna bring forth this message toward him." Okay. Let me transition this back real quick. All right, so y'all can see me again. All right, so. Let's see here real quick. Verse 18, right? He says, "Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great nation, a great and mighty nation, okay, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him," right? So that's what that's going into, right? What does that mean? How does all the nations going to be blessed in Abraham? You know what I'm saying? Because, we got to see what this is talking about, right? So I'm going to give you a couple precepts here. Let's go to Genesis Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 64 real quick. This is what it's talking about right here. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 64. It says, "And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people," right? "From the one end of the earth even unto the other," right? "And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone." So the key point is the scattering, you know what I'm saying? We're going to be scattered to all nations, you know what I'm saying, amongst all those nations. And we're going to be called outside of our God-given name, you know what I'm saying? That's why it's saying, he's going to be a great nation, and all the nations, those names that we're going to be called off of a different nation. For example, some people are called Puerto Rican, some people are called Cubans, and these places are considered their own countries, right? Our people, Isaiah 11 and 11, you know what I'm saying, we scattered through the different parts of Africa, the islands of the sea, so on and so forth, right? So let's just show you some more proof. Deuteronomy 4 and 27 real quick. Use some more scattered scripts, make sure y'all take notes of these. So Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 27, "And the Lord shall scatter you among the nations, and ye shall be left few in number among the heathen, whether the Lord shall lead you." Okay, so that's where we're going to be scattered, We're going to be given false nationalities, false religions, so on and so forth, right? So we're going to go to Matthew chapter 28 and verse 19, right? Just like Pam, this is why Pam, why he come up with that doctrine, right? So, but this is why his church is named Matthew's 28:19, right? What he put Matthew's 28:19, but he put 28:19 on there, but it's going off of this scripture here, okay? But if you know history, the Bible, hey, we know who these nations is talking about. So this is Matthew chapter 28 verse 19. It said, "Go ye therefore and teach all nations," right? "Baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost." Who are those nations? Those nations are Israel. That's amongst those other nations, okay? Amongst those other kingdoms. All right. I give you another one, James 1:1. Just showing is plenty of scriptures that touch on all this stuff here, man. So book of James, chapter 1 and verse 1. So this is James, a servant of God, of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. Greetings, okay? So this is, this is what he's bringing out, you know what I'm saying? So wherever we scattered at, hey, we still to this day not called by our God-given names, you know what I'm saying? But we are the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you know what I'm saying? Jacob's name was changed to Israel. Israel had 12 sons. We the descendants, okay? African Americans, Hispanics, Native Americans, scattered through the diaspora, which is all throughout all four corners of the earth, the islands. So there's a lot of Israelites all over the world, okay? And where we living at, we become a part of that society, you know what I'm saying? So like you put your nationality, you're African American, you're American, right? American citizen. So you being called outside of your God-given name. All right, so let me jump back to the lesson. All right, so Genesis chapter 18 and verse 18, right? So, "Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him." Why? Because we're going to be scattered in those nations and called by different names. Okay, verse 19, "For I know him that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he had spoken of him." Those are the promises, okay, that it's talking about right there, okay? Let's see here real quick. We'll keep on reading here. All right, so we'll keep on reading this verse 20. It says, "And the Lord said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous." We know what the type of sin that they were doing. They was in the midst of homosexual, you know what I'm saying, or sodomy. That's what sodomy comes from, the word Sodom, okay? All right, meaning, man with man or women with women, you know what I'm saying? It's not meek, you know what I'm saying? And it was probably all type of crazy stuff taking place. That's why they said this place here, America, is spiritually Sodom and spiritually Egypt, because Egypt had the same stuff going on, okay? So all this stuff is all over the place. So that's what you see taking place. Nothing new under the sun, okay? Verse 21, "I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me, and if not, I will know." You know what I'm saying? So the Most High, so Christ going down there to see, like, let me see this thing for myself. You know what I'm saying? Verse 22, "And the men turned their faces from thence and went toward Sodom." So now those two men that was with Christ, they went down there. You know what I'm saying? They went down there to go see what was taking place. You know what I'm saying? To go out there and take note of this thing. Because the angels write down and see everything that we do. Okay. And let me see here. And yeah. In verse 23, "And Abraham drew near and said, Will thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked?" So he asked that question, will he destroy the righteous also with the wicked there, Lord? Verse 24, "Peradventure there be 50 righteous within the city, will thou also destroy and not spare the place for the 50 righteous that are therein, right? So he asked that question, hey, if it's 50 people that's righteous, you still going to destroy the whole city, even those 50 people? Verse 25, that be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous should be as the wicked, that be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? So he's asking this question to the Lord. And the Lord said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sake. He said, then I will spare. He said, I will spare. I won't destroy the city to kill, 50 righteous people. Okay, that's what the Lord said. So now Abraham he asked another question. He said, and Abraham answered and said, behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, which am but dust and ashes. Peradventure there shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. So now he's going to say it's 45, right? Will thou destroy all the city for the lack of 5? And he said, if I find there 40 and 5, I will not destroy it. Right? Now the numbers start getting lesser as he keep on going. We got to ask yourself, why the number keep going down? He let you know that there ain't no righteous there. You know what I'm saying? Everybody in there is wicked. There's only one righteous person. You know what I'm saying? Him and his household or whatever. We would touch on that. Verse 29. And he said unto him yet again, and said, peradventure there shall be 40 found there. And he said, I will not do it for the 40's sake. And he said unto him, O Lord, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Peradventure there shall 30 be found there. And he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. So verse 31 said, and he said, behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord. Peradventure there shall be 20 found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for the 20's sake. And he said, oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet. But this once, peradventure 10 shall be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for the 10's sake. And verse 33, and the Lord went his way as soon as he had left communing with Abraham, and Abraham returned unto his place. So now Abraham went, he went back to his place. Remember they was out there, they was looking at a far off at a distance. They can look over according to the map, they can look over the Red Sea, and they can see the cities, those, I want to say 5 cities, but, of Sodom and Gomorrah, okay? All right, so just remember, y'all, we just read Genesis chapter 18. Title for that is Abraham entertained 3 angels, okay? So now we're going to jump to Genesis chapter 19, okay? Genesis chapter 19, and let's get here real quick. 19, it says, Lot is sent for safety into the mountains, okay? That's the title. Lot is sent for safety into the mountains. That's the title. Alrighty, so Genesis chapter 19, verse 1, it said, and there came 2 angels to Sodom at even, right? So now let you know, remember those 2 angels that was there with Christ, and that was communing with, that came in to eat, have dinner and rest and chill with Abraham. So those 2 angels, now they're on their way, now they done made their way to go to Sodom. So now they came to Lot, to Lot's house, right? All right. Let's see here real quick. So, that's what that's going into. The same thing. And, same thing we read there in Genesis chapter 2. Genesis chapter 18 and verse 2, which go in with the same precept of Hebrews chapter 13 and 2, okay? How people have entertained angels unaware, okay? So, we're going to see how Lot, what he did when the angels came. Did he entertain them, with hospitality, or did he, treat them evil? All right, so Genesis 19 and 1 again. And there came 2 angels to Sodom at even, right, and sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. So, you got to look, he learned, what he learned this from? He learned this from Abraham. Remember, he followed Abraham, when Abraham came and followed the Most High. Most High said, I got something, in store for you. You just You come do what I tell you. I need you to leave your people. And Lot came with him. Lot is Abraham's nephew, okay, for those who don't know. All right, so verse 2. And he said, Behold now, my Lord. He said, Behold now, my lords, turn in. Said the same thing. Come on in. Come on in and rest up. He said, Turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night. Stay the night, and wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early and go on your ways. And they said, Nay. So they told Lot, like, no. Why? They said, but we will abide in the streets all night. So we're going to stay out here in the streets. You know what I'm saying? And, they take a note and what, seeing what's taking place, right? So, verse 3, and he pressed upon them greatly. So now, Lot, like, hey, no, he put that pressure. That's what we're supposed to do, you know what I'm saying, amongst each other. We get a brother he come visit. He may be tired or something like that, or he's like, hey man, stay the night, man. Hey, bro, don't leave, stay the night. I got something, I got a bed here for you or whatever. We gotta, invite them in, make them feel welcome. So we kind of just press on them, you know what I'm saying? At least try, at least give the offer, you know what I'm saying? Because it may be late. You don't want your brother to drive out there and, something happen, or your fellow sister, for you sisters, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? If you married, that brother or sister, you know what I'm saying? Hey, that's coming to visit. Hey, make sure, they good, they comfortable, they got somewhere to rest, okay? What it like in like Northern Kingdom with Issachar and them, they say me Costas, you know how it go, my house, your house, me Costas, he Costas. I forgot how the saying go, but I know it means that. But all right, let's see here, verse 3 again. And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned into him and entered into his house. So now they came on into the house, and he made them a feast and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. So they did the same thing. Like what Abraham and them did. They invited them in. They made bread. They had meat and stuff like that, food there. But here to let you know, they had unleavened bread at that time. You know what I'm saying? So they were doing the unleavened bread, just like what we read about how we having for Passover and stuff. Okay, alrighty. So let's see here, verse 4. It says, but before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round. Right. So now they surround Lot's house. These are the men of the city. It said both old and young men. So all the people from every quarter, so everybody, the whole village, that portion or whatever, they all out there surrounded by the mob his house, you know what I'm saying? So verse 5 right there says, and they called unto Lot and said unto him, where are the men which came in to thee this night? Because they seen the angels that came in there, but they saw them as just regular men, you know what I'm saying? They didn't look at them as being, as them being angels, So he said, and they called unto Lot and said unto him, where are the men which came in to thee this night? Bring them out unto us that we may know them. Okay, so when you hear that word, we may know them, they mean they want to sleep with the men. They want to have sex with the angels. You know what I'm saying? These people here crazy, bugged out. This is what they did. They did everything they thought was right in their eyes. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna go to Romans chapter 1 and verse 24 real quick as a precept. Romans 1 and verse 24. We read 24 to 27. It said, wherefore God also gave them up to uncleanness through the lust of their own heart. So let you know that like homosexuality is a lust, okay? It's a spirit on that thing. So it's a lust. So to dishonor their own bodies between themselves, which changed the truth of God into a lie. Because God, the law, we know what the truth is of the Lord is the law, statutes, and commandments, and they changing that thing to a lie. That's what we see going on today. They said man can marry man, women can marry women. Now they trying to make it you can marry kids and animals, so on and so forth. All this stuff here was going on, right? And worship, this is, verse 25 again, who changed the truth of God unto a lie, and worship and serve the creature more than the creator. So they worship and serve man, Same thing we see going on today, right? What man they talking about? Esau. Okay? So during this time here, it was Esau as well, what we reading in Romans, okay? So back then, you know what I'm saying, they were just worshiping man, you know what I'm saying, during that time, right? They said they worship, what is it? And worship and serve the creature more than the creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this cause, this verse 26, for this cause God gave them up unto vile affections. That's what he said. That's called a vile affection, okay? Meaning that's not right, it's disgusting. That's not what God made, you know, man and women to do, you know what I'm saying? That's like you're doing math, you know what I'm saying? You divide, what is it, you know, you do multiplying, you know, you got negative and a positive or whatever, you know, it's going to cancel out. Or two negatives, you know, or two positives, or whatever. It's, you know, I ain't that good at math, but I remember something like that. It cancels out, so you can't have no children with the same sex. Okay. All right. It said, for this cause God gave them up to vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. So they was doing this back during that time too. So you had women that would dress up like men during the time, you know, the Romans. We can read about this all the way, you know, all the way back when. You know, this same thing was taking place during the time of Noah as well. Okay, so it says, and likewise also the men leaving the natural use of the women burn in their lust one toward another. So let you know all this thing is lust. It says, men with men working that which is unseemly, meaning it's not right. This is not normal. Okay, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error, which was meat. You know what I'm saying? Which is, you know, this is what they're gonna get. You know what I'm saying? Which is what, you know, they're gonna get judgment for that thing. Which is, you know, that judgment is the right thing. You know, that the Most High gonna have. You know, they don't get themselves right, they're gonna get put to death. Okay, or they're gonna burn in the lake of fire when judgment day happen. You know. But before, back in the days, if you was in the midst of this, you got killed. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't sacrifice. There was no sacrifice for it. There was no animal sacrifice for this. You know. So guess what? Your blood had to be shed for this type of sin, or this type of getting caught up in this type of lust and sin. All right. Let's see here real quick. Where am I at? Okay, I'm jumping up. All right. We'll go back here to where we left off at in Genesis chapter 19 and what was that? 19 and 5. Genesis chapter 19 and 5. And they called unto Lot and said unto him, where are the men which came in unto thee this night? They said, bring them out unto us that we may know them. So they want to have sex with the men, the men of the city. And Lot went out at the door unto them and shut the door after him. So now he done closed the door. You know, he's trying to protect the angels. You know, Lot went out there himself to speak to the people of the city, the men, and said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. So don't do this thing, man. This is wrong. This is not right. You know, it said verse 8, behold now, I have 2 daughters which have not known man. So he said, I got 2 daughters here that live with me. They don't know man. They ain't never slept with man before. They virgins, okay? He said, let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them. You can do what you want to do to them as is good in your eyes. He said, only unto these men do nothing. He said, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. He said, these men here, they came in, don't entreat them evil. You know what I'm saying? You can do what you want to do. And you got to see Lot. He's willing to sacrifice his 2 virgin daughters, you know what I'm saying, for the sake of the angels, okay? And he's trying to warn those men, you know, he said, hey, look, don't do this thing. Because some of these people are his people too. That's why he said brethren, okay? Remember, he went and he dwelt there, and, you know, in the process of time, a lot of those people are, you know, some of his old servants and people that who he had dealt with, you know what I'm saying, or who was part of his family as well. All right, so verse 9, and they said, stand back. And they said, again, this one fellow came in to sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. You know what I'm saying? You know, so they asked, they saying the same thing where, like, you know, what we read about when you read in Exodus about Moses, where they said, Moses, how you going to judge us? You know what I'm saying? You killed somebody or whatever. So they, or somebody, how people say, you can't judge us. You can't tell us what to do. So that's what they're saying here to Lot. He said, now will we deal worse with thee than with them? He said, you better give us those, man. We're going to do you worse. You know what I'm saying? We're going to do other things with you. You know what I'm saying? Worse than what we plan to do with those men, which are the angels, okay? And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. So now they came on there. They trying to push him, take him, snatch him out, and bust through the door. This is what they trying to do, right? So just let you know, hey, look, these people here, they supposed to be in the midst to entertaining angels unaware. They don't even know what they doing, right? So verse 10 said, but the men put forth their hand and pulled Lot into the house to them, right? So this is the angel that snatched Lot and brought him in the house and shut to the door. So they closed the door shut. Bam. You know what I'm saying? Verse 11, right? It says, and they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, right? So now they done put something on them that blinded the men so they can't see, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. Now they reaching out, trying to find the door. Look, you got to think about it. He blinded them, and they still trying to get to them. You know what I'm saying? They still trying to get to the door. That's their mindset. I can't see nothing, but I want to. That lust was so strong on them. They like, man, I'm that evil. They still trying to get to the angels while they're blind. Okay? That's what I let you know at verse 11. Normally you get blind, you're going to kind of fall back. They wearied themselves toward the door trying to find it. All right? So verse 12. And the man said unto Lot, Hast thou here any besides son-in-law and thy... He asked, do you have any other family that's here, that's in the city? He said, you got anybody else in the city that you need to get? He said, he said, son-in-law and thy sons and thy daughters and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place. He said, get them and get them ready, let them know. This is what he's saying. Get them out of this place, right? Verse 13 says, for we will destroy this place because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. So now they letting Lot know what Abraham knew. You know what I'm saying? Hey, we about to destroy this place. We're going to look out for you. We're going to save you and your family. Okay, go out there and go tell your people, you know what I'm saying? Hey, let them know what's going on. And, so we about to destroy this place. So you think about it, it's almost like he's going out there to have camp. They go tell his family to try to, to bring them, to come along with him. So, the same thing when we tell our family about this truth, what they do? They laugh at us. They look at us like we're crazy. Like you got 2 heads or 3 heads on top of your head, right? Let's see here real quick. So verse 13 said, for we will destroy this place because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it, right? So we're going to pull the precept here. We're going to go to the book of Sirach, chapter 39 real quick, y'all. Sirach, let's get that real quick. See what time it is. Sirach, chapter 39. And let's see here real quick. Make sure I don't lose track of time real quick. All right, Sirach 39, verse 28 real quick. All right, Sirach chapter 39, verse 28, it said, there be spirits that are created for vengeance, right, which in their fury lay on sore strokes, right? In the time of destruction they pour out their force and appease the wrath of them that made them. So, these are the angels that's coming down. These are the spirits that it's talking about, okay? All right, so the Most High had created them to come and tear this place down to cause judgment, right? Verse 29, right? It says, fire and hell and famine and death, all these were created for vengeance, man. Meaning this is payback, okay? And verse 30, teeth of wild beasts, and scorpions, serpents, and the sword, punishing the wicked to destruction, okay? That's where they're coming down to destroy the wicked, meaning the sinners. Verse 31 said, they shall rejoice in his commandment, and they shall be ready upon the earth when need is. So they was told to go down there to do a job, hey, they about to go down there to execute the judgment, okay, to make sure it happened, right? They're going to rejoice in that commandment. It said, and when their time is come, they shall not transgress his word. So you hear that, right? They don't break, angels don't break commandments. You know what I'm saying? They go do thus saith the Lord. So that's what was getting ready to take place. So that judgment said, we come here to judge this situation, okay? So I'm going to go back and read that verse 13. Read Genesis chapter 19 and verse 13. For we will destroy this place because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. Okay, so that's that precept. Verse 14, and Lot went out and spake unto his sons-in-law, right, which married his daughters, and said, so I want y'all to, take heed to that, so he went out there to go talk to his sons-in-laws. So to let you know, so remember the two daughters that lived with Lot, so remember they didn't have no husband. So these talking about other children that Lot had in the city of Sodom and Gomorrah, right? So who did Lot go speak to? He didn't go speak to his daughters. He went to go speak to their husbands. Why? Because they one flesh and they're the head of the household. So he said, I'm going to go speak to my sons-in-laws, okay? So, what is it right here? Let me go back here real quick. I lost my place. All right, in verse 14, and Lot went out and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, up and get you out of this place. He said, get out of this place, y'all. We got to leave. Y'all got to pack up and go. For the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. You know what I'm saying? He trying to speak to them, and they just laughing at him. Like, oh, man, what the heck is this old man talking about? What is he talking about, man? Hey, man, they're like, Pops. They're like, hey, Dad, you got to go, man. You tripping, man. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing about to happen to this city. So that's just like what happened with us. We go out to camp, or you talk to your own family members. Hey, they don't take you serious. They think you joking. Same thing. Noah went and preached. Him and his sons, they went out and preached for 120 years. You know what I'm saying? To everybody that was there during that time. They looked at him and mocked him. They looked at him like, man, why you building a boat on land for? Ain't no daggone water here. So they looked at him like he was crazy. So it was like that's the foolishness of preaching. You know what I'm saying? What they call it when you read in First Corinthians chapter 1. Okay, all right. The foolishness of preaching. That's what's gonna save us. Okay. All right. We're back Genesis 19 and 15. And when the morning arose, right, then the angels hastened Lot. So now they tell Lot, hey, you need to get your stuff. Let's go, man. You Lot over here, trying to pick up stuff, grab this, and I need this, let me pack this, let me take this with me. So the angel saying, arise, take thy wife and thy two daughters, which are here. Okay, so let you know, so let you know the difference. Okay, so you had his two daughters. I mean, he had his daughters in them that were married to his sons-in-laws. You know what I'm saying? And he had the two daughters that stayed with him, along with his wife. He said, go ahead and just take your household who you got here. Take them, take your wife and your two daughters, which are here. He said, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. Because if you stay here, you're gonna burn up and die too. You're gonna get destroyed as well. So you need to hurry up and go. So verse 16, right, says, and while he lingered, he's sitting there, he lingering around, you know what I'm saying, taking his time. He said, the man laid hold upon his hand and upon the hand of his wife and upon the hand of his two daughters, the Lord being merciful unto him. So the Lord being merciful unto Lot. Why? Due to Abraham's sake. Remember, that's why, Abraham was asking that question. He's like, what if it be this many people? What if it be that many people? He was referring to his family, that he had there. You know what I'm saying? Going into Lot. You know what I'm saying? Lot and his family. He was asking about them, but Abraham knew a lot of them was wicked too. But he knew Lot wasn't, like that. You know what I'm saying? He knew Lot would, keep the commandments, they probably visit each other, linked up with each other for special occasions and stuff like that, because it's just a city over the Dead Sea, you know what I'm saying? So they in walking distance from each other. So they've seen each other from time to time. So So he's like, hey, what about him? You know what I'm saying? Pretty much what he was going into, right? So I read 16 again to get back on point. Genesis 19 and 16. And while he lingered, the man laid hold upon his hand and upon the hand of his wife and upon the hand of his two daughters. It says, the Lord being merciful unto him, and they brought him forth and set him without the city. So they let you know here when the angel snatched them up and teleport them outside the city. You know what I'm saying? So they were set out quick. You know what I'm saying? They had time to walk them through the town or through the city or whatever, and he snatched them out quick. Because the destruction get ready to come. The Lord told him, this is what got to happen. This is what's got to take place. We're going to get you out of here before all that take place, okay? Because the Lord being merciful to save you. Verse 17. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, escape for thy life. He said, leave. Look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. He said, hey, don't even stay nowhere around this place, because all this stuff is wicked. All this stuff been inhabited and wicked by, the spirit is all over the place, man. So we got to destroy all of this. He said, escape to the mountains, lest thou be consumed. He said, hey, go to the mountains and make your way fast to the mountains, unless you're going to be consumed with fire, right? Now, Lot said this, and Lot said unto them, oh, not so, my Lord. He said, behold, now thy servant hath found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast showed unto me in saving my life. He said, and I cannot escape to the mountains, lest some evil take me and I die, So he let them know, like, hey, it's kind of, it's probably a good distance, you know what I'm saying, from where the mountains were. He let them know, so I won't be able to make it that far. So verse 20, behold, now this city is near to flee unto. So he let them know, y'all can, there's another city that's close by. He said, oh, let me escape. Hold on, read verse 20 again. Behold, now this city is near to flee unto. He says, and it is a little one, a little small city town. He said, oh, let me escape thither. Is it not a little one? He said, and my soul shall live. He said, can I at least make it to there? You know what I'm saying? And verse 21, and he said unto him, he said, see, I have accepted thee concerning this thing also, that I will not overthrow this city for the which thou hast spoken. Since you spoke of this place here, you know what I'm saying, I'm not going to destroy the city, so that way you can make your way to escape there, okay? Verse 22, haste thee, escape thither. He said, go, he said, hurry and escape there, run there, for I cannot do anything till thou be come thither. He said, therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. Okay, so that was the name of the city, right? He said the sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered into Zoar, right? So now the sun's coming up. So this is morning time, So you got to think, let's about right around the time now, if you on the East Coast like myself. So now the sun get ready to come up, or if it should be up right now, So it's the same thing here taking place right here. So verse 23 again, the sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered into Zoar. So then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. Right. So now this place is getting burnt up. Right. So I'm gonna move this map so you guys can see. So remember over here, looking at area where you see Moab, right, which is to the right. You see Ammon, Moab, and Edom. If you look below Moab, there's Sodom and Gomorrah, right? They said this is where they believe, where it's at, you know what I'm saying, somewhere in that vicinity. So you see a question mark, that's what, Esau said. So we'll say that was the area where, where Lot had lived, where he stayed at, so then they escaped to a little town called Zoar. I don't see Zoar on here, you know what I'm saying? But it was real small, so it probably, it don't the place probably don't exist now. But transition it back. But just want to show y'all, give y'all a little map so you can kind of see where, how people traveled and where they moved. You know what I'm saying? How Abraham and how Lot, what was taking place during that time. Okay. Alrighty, verse 25. and he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the city, and that which grew upon the ground, right? Everything that was there in that city and everything that grew upon the ground, the Lord, he destroyed everything, okay? Verse 26, but his wife looked back from behind. Remember the angel said, don't look behind you, okay? But it said, but his wife looked back behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. So why she get asked, why she looked back for? What was so important? Just let you know his wife, she missed that city. You know what I'm saying? It's just like our people back in the days, when they said, we was leaving out of when we left Egypt, our people, they missed Egypt. You know what I'm saying? I missed that. I missed the food and all that stuff, the fish that we ate, the cucumbers, so on and so forth. So that's what what that was talking about, right? So I got some precepts. Let's get I'm gonna give you a precept on here. Let's go to Exodus chapter 16 real quick. Exodus 16 and verse 2 and 3. Okay. Let me get it with y'all. Exodus chapter 16 and verse 2. And the whole congregation of children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. Verse 3, and the children of Israel said unto them, would to God we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, and when we did eat bread to the full. So this is what we was thinking about Egypt when we left, we was in the wilderness. For ye have brought us forth unto the wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. You know what I'm saying? So, and the Most High was feeding us. You're feeding us manna. You got to think we were eating angel food. You know what I'm saying? You got to feel great that you're able to eat, some food that the heavenly beings, that they get to eat. You know what I'm saying? This is food coming from the heavens. You know what I'm saying? Well, we wasn't satisfied. We want more. Even the Lord couldn't please us. That's crazy. You know what I'm saying? We was ungrateful, right? Let's go to Numbers chapter 11 real quick. Numbers chapter 11. My page is all folded up. Numbers 11 and verse 5 and 6. I said, all right, Numbers 11 and 5. We remember the fish which we did eat in Egypt freely, the cucumbers and the melons. You know what I'm saying? So hey, you got to think about it. This is talking about Israel right here. We love to eat cucumbers with either with salt. Some of us put salt on our cucumbers. Some of us have it with vinegar, right? Salt, vinegar and pepper. You know what I'm saying? Or there's different ways you can hook up the cucumbers, right? And the melons that we ate. So we like to eat watermelons and cantaloupes and stuff like that. So this right here let you know we missed the cucumbers and the leeks, right? And the onions and the garlic. Right, and what is it? Verse 6. It says, "But now our soul is dried away. There is nothing at all besides this manna before our eyes." That's how we was looking. We were getting tired of that thing. You know what I'm saying? but you got you got to look at that. Hey, we're getting some good food, clean food at that. This food wasn't from the earth. It was this stuff. It was made by the angels and stuff, man. This is what they ate. And they was right. They weren't eating that trash down here, So, they're just showing you how ungrateful, how Israel is. Israel, we always ungrateful. We always complain and stuff like that and murmured. So the same thing with her. She missed Sodom and Gomorrah, meaning she missed all that madness, that wickedness, like some of it, this said, nothing new under the sun, even when we go back to the wilderness. A lot of our people, some people are going to be complaining. Oh, I missed this and I missed that. Why? 'Cause we're gonna be in the wilderness, just like how we go out in the tabernacles. We're gonna be out in tabernacles. We're gonna be dwelling in tents. You're gonna be on the move. You know what I'm saying? And food gonna be scarce. You know what I'm saying? But the Lord gonna feed us according to what is meat unto us. You know what I'm saying? So you ain't gonna be overeating and doing all this stuff. We're gonna be in, Lord's will. We all get to make it there. Guess what? You're gonna be in shape because you're gonna be on the move. And you're going to be training and learning the law, statutes, and commandments the right way, you know what I'm saying? We practice and rehearsing the righteous acts like Judges 5 and 11. But, there's some things, the Lord got to reteach us over again. Why? And he He got to show us stuff, you know what I'm saying, that we, you know, because we're going to know the Bible in part, you know, but we'll know everything that day, okay? So, jump back here to where we left off at Genesis 19 and 26. Genesis chapter 19, verse 26 said, but his wife looked back from, she looked back, my pages, yeah, look, she looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. So you missed that place, guess what? You're going to be just like the rest of the area. You're going to be just like the plane. The angels gave a strict order. Hey, don't look back. Keep it moving, keep it moving. Why are you looking back? Because she reminiscing and crying and stuff like that. So yeah, look at that. Most High had mercy on some of us, you know, in the wilderness at that time. You know, when we was leaving Egypt, you know, he could have turned a lot of us into pillar of salt, but you know, he had mercy, you know, at that time. He had no mercy on her. So yeah, look at that thing. All right, so we'll go here to verse 27. It says, and Abraham got, so verse 27, Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord. So he was looking over in the plain, and you know, he went to go see that thing, got up early to go see what was taking place. And he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. So you see that thing lit up, you know, this is what the Lord had said what was going to take place. In verse 29, and it came to pass when God destroyed the cities of the plain that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow when he overthrew the cities in which Lot dwelt. You know what I'm saying? See, remember, he said he remembered him. He saved Lot for Abraham's sake. You know, that's why Abraham was asking about, you know, is this many righteous people, that many people? You know, he was referring to Lot, you know, and some, maybe those were some of his families if they was righteous, but a lot of them wasn't, evidently, you know. So verse 30, and Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountain, and his two daughters with him. So now they finally went to those mountains that the angel told him to flee to, for he feared to dwell in Zoar, and he dwelt in a cave, he and his two daughters, right? And the firstborn said unto the younger, our father is old, you know, he's old, you know what I'm saying, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth, you know what I'm saying. So now they thinking that, hey, they the only ones left, everybody's destroyed, you know, what they just saw that this took place, you know what I'm saying. Verse 32, come, let us make our father drink wine, let's get him drunk, you know what I'm saying, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in, you know what I'm saying. So you got to think, you know, at this time here, you know, the same thing when we go back as you read in, when we go back to Genesis, you know, about Noah, you know what I'm saying, when Noah just watched everybody get destroyed in the flood, you know what I'm saying, what just took place, you know, and, you know, they never saw rain before, and it rained. You know what I'm saying? And everybody died in the flood. And so he's seen some things that took place. Guess what? That thing is stressful. You know, so what you're going to do, you're going to have you some drink. You're going to drink some wine. The wine makes you merry, you know, kind of relaxes you, you know, and, you know, like you drink too much of it, it'll get the best of you. So remember, he got drunk, you know, you know, with all that stress. So same thing here. He got drunk too, you know what I'm saying? Lot drank. He got his wife, that's why his daughters and them also made him drink more, you know what I'm saying, till he just passed out. So I'm going to read 33 again, Genesis 19 and 33. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and laid with her father. So now she laying in and had sex with her dad. And he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. You know, he passed out drunk. And it came to pass on the morrow that the firstborn said unto the younger, behold, I lay yesternight with my father, meaning last night. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also, And the younger arose and lay with him, and perceived not when she lay down, nor when he arose. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father, right? So now they're pregnant, right? Okay, so now verse this is heavy. This is a key point. You gotta remember the book of Genesis is the beginning, right? This is the beginning. You read about the beginning of different nations, okay? So actually, I'm gonna as we read, it's good that we over here. I'm gonna slide this thing over real quick. So as y'all see here, just look to the far right, right? All right, Genesis chapter 37. Genesis chapter 19 and verse 37. And the firstborn bare a son, and called his name Moab. You see that? So just like we see the Moab, which is Moab. It says the same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. So you see Moab, the land of Moab. This is the Moabites. This is your people from China. Okay, the people that live in China. These are your Moabites, right? In that part of what we call Asia. Okay. Verse 38. And the younger she also bare a son, and called his name Ben-Ami. The same is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day. That's why you see Ammon on the top right there. So you got Moab and Ammon, right? So all of them have what he called Mongoloid. You know what I'm saying? Mongoloid, trait in them, where their eyes, Mongoloid is almost like a Down syndrome. And you ever see people, who has Down syndrome? If you ever look at their eyes, whether they be of Israel or Esau or whatever, you know what I'm saying? They all have the Mongoloid eyes. They have slanted eyes, okay? Or they have that, some of them have that little built to them, you know what I'm saying? They're kind of short, stocky or whatever. So Moab has that Mongoloid, and Moab and Ammon, the Chinese and the Japanese today, they have that syndrome in them. It's in their system, and that's something about them that makes them, something unique about them that makes them look the way they look. And it comes from incest, okay? Incest. So the father, the daughter slept with the fathers, or, that's where that comes from. The bloodline is too close, okay? So that's what took place here with, that's how those two nations came about. The Ammonites, which is your Japanese, and the Moabites, which is the Chinese today. So also the Koreans is part of, some part of Korea. Some of them is part of Ammon. Some of them is part of, Moab. You know what I'm saying? Probably the ones on the western side, probably, because you got some, I gotta say Moab be kind of tall. I'm gonna tell you, they be tall. Look at Yao Ming, and some of them they be some tall people, and Ammon be short. You know what I'm saying? The Koreans and the Japanese are real short. They're kind of short and be like stocky, That's why some of their women look like little dudes and stuff when they get old. You probably ask me how I know that. Hey, we got a bunch of them out here from where I live at. You know what I'm saying? We got a military base, and hey, we see a bunch of them. I used to work with some coming up. But anyways, let me move on to the next chapter here. So we're going to go to Genesis chapter 20. So those who didn't get the titles, Genesis chapter 18, Abraham entertained 3 angels. Genesis 19, Lot is sent for safety into the mountains. So we're going to get to Genesis chapter 20 here real quick. So Genesis chapter 20 and verse 1. All right, it says, and Abraham journeyed from thence toward the south country, and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur, and sojourned in Gerar, right? So it's letting you know where he journeyed to. So I'm gonna, get back here to the map. So you'll see where he went to. We see Gerar right there, which is under Hebron, right? So remember, he was just up there in Hebron. So now he's there, in that area where Gerar is at, right? Which is below Hebron. Okay, so he's in that area. So you see it in the red arrows. You see like right there in between. So I'm gonna transition it back. I just want to make sure y'all see where we at, where our forefather traveled. And Abraham said of Sarah, his wife, she is my sister, and and Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah, right? So he's letting them know, say, hey, this is my sister. You know what I'm saying? So he didn't want to tell him. He didn't want to tell him that's his wife because everybody knew of the law of adultery. You know what I'm saying? Under that law went all the way back to all the way back from in the beginning. From Adam and Eve all the way from Noah and all that. You know what I'm saying? So they knew of this law. So Abraham knew that, hey, just like what happened in Egypt. How Pharaoh took his wife. He had to tell him that you my sister, because if not, they're gonna they're gonna kill me for your sake. All right. So same thing here. We dealing with the Canaanites here. Okay. So verse 2 again. Abraham said of Sarah his wife, she is my sister. And Abimelech king of Gerar sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, behold, thou art but a dead man, for the woman which thou hast taken, for she is a man's wife. So let him know you in the midst of adultery, okay? All right. Just want to make sure I got everything here. All right. So we'll go back to, I'm not going to go back and read that history, but due to the sake of time, but Genesis chapter 12, verse 11 through 19, that's what I was quoting on, but it was touching on that history about Pharaoh, okay? All righty, verse 4. But Abimelech had not come near her, so he didn't sleep with her. He didn't have sex with her. And he said, Lord, wilt thou slay also a righteous nation? So this is what Abimelech said. Verse 5 said, he not unto me, she is my sister. You know what I'm saying? And this is what Abimelech was saying. He said that was his sister. This is what I was. And she herself said, he is my brother, in the integrity of my heart and innocency of my hands have I done this. He said, this is what I did. I just took her. I didn't know. I thought they were siblings, but he went on and took her anyways. Verse 6, and God said unto him in a dream, yea, I know that thou didst this in the integrity of thy heart. He said, I know you did this in the integrity. You know what I'm saying? You didn't take her because you wouldn't have took her. How can I say? Well, I guess like I said, he wouldn't have took her, had he known that was his wife. You know what I'm saying? But the people, his servants, would have killed Abraham for her sake. Said, for I also withheld thee from sinning against me. Therefore suffered I thee not to touch her. So to let you know, everybody, all the nations in them, still have that law all the way back from, Noah's three sons, okay? From Noah and all the way back to, Adam and Eve, you know what I'm saying? That law of adultery, okay? So verse 7, now therefore restore the man his wife, for he is a prophet. See that? Abraham's a prophet, okay? And he shall pray for thee, and thou shalt live, So Abraham will pray for you, and you'll live for Abraham's sake. And if thou restore her not, know that thou shalt surely die, thou and all that are thine. He said, everything that is yours, I kill. That's your family, your nation, your animals, cattle, all that stuff. He said, therefore Abimelech rose early in the morning and called all his servants and told all these things in their ears. And the men were so afraid. So they got scared. They're like, oh man, we gotta do something, man. We gotta get this man back. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said unto him, what hast thou done unto us? What have you done? And what have I offended thee, that thou hast brought on me and on my kingdom a great sin? You know what I'm saying? Thou hast done deeds unto me that ought not to be done. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, what sawest thou that thou hast done this thing? He said, why you didn't tell me, you know what I'm saying, that was your wife? Pretty much what he's saying. Abraham said, because I thought surely the fear of God is not in this place. You know what I'm saying? Meaning they don't know God. That's what the fear is, the commandments. Why? How can you tell? You go like Sirach 19 and 29 and 30. A man may be known by his looks. You can tell if you have understanding according to how they carried themselves, because they had their own, gods and deities and idols and stuff that they worship. So verse 11 again, and Abraham said, because I thought surely the fear of God is not in this place, and they will slay me for my wife's sake. Okay, and yet indeed she is my sister. He listened, this is my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. So they got the same father. You know what I'm saying? Terah is, I think that's Abraham's father name is Terah. So they got the same father, but they got different mothers. And she became my wife. Okay? So that's how that is. Verse 13, and it came to pass when God caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said unto her, this is thy kindness, which thou shalt show unto me at every place whether we shall come, say of me, he is my brother. You know what I'm saying? That's what we say. We come to different places, and if I don't see the fear of the Lord there, hey, we gotta say this, because wow, I gotta live. You know what I'm saying? I'm important. You know what I'm saying? And I'm using wisdom. That's the simplest that. I didn't lie to you, but she's my wife and she is my sister. That's what happened back during them times. Verse 14, and Abimelech took sheep and oxen and manservants and women servants and gave them unto Abraham and restored him Sarah his wife. So he got more servants and he got more richer. Verse 15, and Abimelech said, behold, my land is before thee. Dwell where it pleaseth thee. And unto Sarah he said, behold, I have given thy brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Behold, he is to thee a covering of the eyes unto all that are with thee, and with all other. Thus she was reproved. You know what I'm saying? Verse 17. So Abraham prayed unto God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and his maidservants, and they bare children. So the Most High closed up their womb. So he was going to kill them, and whoever was left of them, they weren't going to be able to have no kids. You know what I'm saying? They won't be able to produce no more. This whole nation would have been wiped out. Verse 18, for the Lord had fast closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Okay? So I'm going to try, I'm about to read through the next chapter. Okay? So that way I can finish up this. I suppose that Ben finished this thing up. But for those, so the last chapter, the title, what we just read is called Abimelech Takes Sarah from Abraham. That was chapter 20. So now we're going to read chapter 21, okay? All right, so chapter 21 and chapter 21, verse 1. The chapter 21 is titled Sarah Conceived and Bare Abraham a Son. Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son. All right, so Genesis chapter 21, verse 1. And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. So you remember what he was speaking about, right? She for surely gonna have a son. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age at the set time of which God had spoken to him. So just like we read in chapter 17 and in chapter 18, this is what he said. In next year, at this appointed time, you're going to have a son. Verse 3, and Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him Isaac. Okay, so this is where Isaac was born. Okay, the name Isaac means one that laugh. Okay, so that go back to Genesis chapter 17 and 19. That's remember both of them had laughed to themselves like, how am I have a child at this old age? But that's what Isaac means, one that laugh. Okay. Verse 4, and Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. So the Most High commanded him in Genesis chapter 17 and 10. He commanded him to say, all of them had to be circumcised. Remember Ishmael, all his servants, and all of them had to be circumcised, right? Alrighty, read on down, verse 5. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. So remember, at this time, when Sarah was 90 years old and Abraham is 100 years old, because they're 10 years apart. So Sarah's 90 years older than Isaac, and Abraham is 100 years older than Isaac. I'll always keep that in remembrance. Verse 6, and Sarah said, God hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear would laugh with me. They're going to laugh like, verse 7, and she said, who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should have given children suck? For I had borne him a son in his old age. Okay. Verse 8, and the children grew and was weaned. Right. The child grew and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. So, weaned meaning, he's, now he's able to eat solid foods, you know what I'm saying? He's not just eating, he's not on a liquid diet, just drinking breast milk, okay? So let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 2 and verse, we're going to go here with 1 Samuel chapter 2 and verse 22. So 1 Samuel chapter 2 and verse 22. So it's talking about, so now Eli was very old and heard all that his sons did unto Israel. Let me see, hold on, let me make sure I got this right, y'all. Bear with me. 1 Samuel 2. It might be, actually, I think it's 1 Samuel chapter 1 and verse 20, 1 and verse 22. All right. I put the wrong thing in there. All right. So this book of 1 Samuel chapter 1 and verse 22. But Hannah went not up, for she said unto her husband, I will not go up until the child be weaned. So this is talking about Samuel. And then I will bring him that he may appear before the Lord and there abide forever. And Elkanah her husband said unto her, do what seemeth thou good, tarry until thou have weaned him. Only the Lord established his word. So the woman abode and gave her, hold on, the page is folded up. So the woman abode and gave her son suck until she weaned him. Okay. Verse 24. And when he was weaned him, she took him up with her with the 3 bullocks and one. I'm not going to read the rest of that. Y'all can read that part. But to let you know about the wean, I'm going to give you the other precept here. We're going to go to 2 Maccabees chapter 7 real quick. 2 Maccabees chapter 7. We'll read about the woman with the 7 sons, okay? So, the 2 Maccabees chapter 7. And let's see here real quick. Verse 27. So we get the age, okay? So this chapter, 2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 27. But she, bowing herself toward him, laughed the cruel tyrant to scorn, spake in her country language on this manner. O my son, have pity upon me that bare thee 9 months in my womb. So let you know she was pregnant for 9 months, and gave thee suck 3 years, and nourished thee, and brought thee up unto the age, and endured the troubles of education. So to let you know, so that time frame of being weaned, I mean the child is about 3 years old. Okay, so that's what that's going into. So, so she gave him suck for 3 years and nourished thee. So to let you know, that's what that wean means. So when Abraham, so now we're reading about what is? Let me go back here real quick where I left off at. Verse 8. So this is Genesis chapter 21, verse 8. And the child grew and was weaned. So now he's 3 years old. Okay. And now at this particular time, Abraham is 103 years old, and and Sarah's 93 years old, right? And Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. Verse 9. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, which she had born unto Abraham, mocking, right? So now we're reading in verse 9, right? So now this child is, we'll read this and hear the word mocking, right? Now we got to find out what is the mocking talking about, right? Let me see. So she's seeing some stuff that's taking place, right? In verse 9, right? I'm going to read verse 10. It says, wherefore she said unto Abraham, cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. You know what I'm saying? Because she see how Ishmael, you know what I'm saying? Ishmael was being damn, being rude, and, he was mocking, he was teasing. He was, it was more than just teasing, you know what I'm saying? When you look up the word mocking, okay, let me see here real quick. We're going to go to, I'm going to try to go to Galatians, we're going to go to Galatians chapter 4 and verse 27 real quick. Go ahead, Galatians, let me see what time it is. Galatians 4. In Galatians chapter 4 and verse 27. Is that what I want? Yeah. Galatians 4 and 27. It says, neither give place to the devil. Let him that stole steal no more. Hold on, that's Ephesians. I'm sorry. Bear with me, y'all. I flipped it too fast. All right, Galatians 4 and 27. For it is written, rejoice thou barren that bearest not. Break forth and cry, thou that travailest not, for the desolation with many more children than she which hath an husband. Right? So verse 28. Now we brethren, as Isaac was, are the children of the promise. So, what I'm saying, we're the children of the promise, going into Isaac, right? It said, but as then he that was born after the flesh persecuted him. Okay, hear that? So that mocking was going into persecution. When you look at the word mock, look up the root word of mocking and stuff, or look up the word persecution, meaning he was being harsh to him. He probably was punching him and pushing him down, because you got to look at this. I want y'all to understand. When you, let me see here real quick. Ishmael, let's do the math here. Ishmael was, when he was born, Abraham was 86 years old, right? So now you add 86 to, let's say, to about 100, he's 103 now, right? You do the math on that. So how old was Ishmael during this time? You know what I'm saying? I think he had to be about what? My math is bad right now because I'm trying to push through. So you do the math, right? So if Ishmael was born when Abraham was 86, and Isaac was born when Abraham was 100 years old, right? So now at this particular time, he's Abraham's 103 years old, because now Isaac, he's weaned at 3 years old, right? What we just read in 2nd Maccabees 2 and 27, right? So we get back here and read this. All right, go back to Galatians 4 and 29. But as then he that was born after the flesh persecuted him that was born after the spirit. Even so it is now, right? Say verse 30. Nevertheless, that said the scripture, cast out the bondwoman and her son, for the son of the bondwoman shall not be heir with the son of the free woman. So then, brethren, we are not children of the bondwoman, but of the free. So that's what that's going into right there. That's just showing you that history back then. You know what I'm saying? So hey, she was cast out. Her and her son was cast out. Right? We go back to it in Genesis 21. So when you hear somebody that's a Muslim, or he was in Islam, and they always talk about, they say Ishmael was the chosen. He wasn't chosen. The Bible will tell you that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what they reading in the in the Quran. You know what I'm saying? That's some garbage. But anyways, Genesis 21 and 9. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, which she had born unto Abraham, mocking, right? Meaning he was persecuting. He was being bad toward Isaac. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. The word even means indeed, okay? All right, so let's see here real quick. Make sure I just want to make sure I got this thing here down pat. I want to say Ishmael had to be about 17 years old when at that time frame. I got it written down here in my notes, but y'all can do the math on that and check on that. Right, and verse 13. Let me see, what was that? Make sure I left off okay. All right, yeah. Verse 11. And the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight because of his son. Right, he that was his oldest son. He liked his son. That's just what anybody. You got a child. You don't want to get rid of your child. Right, verse 12. And God said unto Abraham, let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad, and because of thy bondwoman. He said, and all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called. Okay, let's go back to Romans 9. Okay, y'all get a chance to read Romans 9, verse 7 through 10. Okay, he said, and also of the son. He said, also, let me see. And also of the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation, because he is thy seed. Remember, he said he's gonna be the father of many nations, right? And he's gonna have a whole bunch of kids. So he said, I'm gonna make him a great nation too. You know what I'm saying? And Abraham rose up early in the morning and took bread and a bottle of water and gave it unto Hagar, putting it on her shoulder and the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. Right, so let me transition this back to the map. So we look down there, you'll see Beersheba where the red and that with the red arrow where it pointing at. That's Beersheba. So this is where she had went towards. She went down to her. And, Ishmael went down there. Okay, so I transitioned it back. And the water was spent in the bottle. And she cast the child under one of the shrubs. So she put the child under one of the shrubs where some shade is at. And she went and sat her down over against him a good way off, as it were a bow shot, So she was off at a distance, kind of left him there. For she said, let me not see the death of the child. So she just set him there just in case he was going. She thought he was going to die, She said, I want to leave him there because he dehydrated. He out there, no water, it's hot. They're in the desert. And she sat over against him and lifted up her voice and wept. So she sat over the bottom and she cried. Verse 17, and God heard the voice of the lad, and the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven and said unto her, what alive thee, Hagar? What's going on? What you doing? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is. Because he's over there, he probably crying and stuff like that. Verse 18, arise, lift up thy lad, and hold him in thine hand. She said, go there and go grab you, go comfort him, for I will make him a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. Right, so now she see the well of water that's out there. And she went and filled the bottle with water and gave the lad drink. So she gave him to hydrate. And he a teenager at this time, you know what I'm saying? And God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. So that's what he was. He was an archer, you know what I'm saying? Someone, archer, somebody that can shoot bow and arrow, you know what I'm saying? They're good at, at archery. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran. And his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. You know what I'm saying? Remember, she's an Egyptian. So she went and found, somebody of her nation. And, took her, that female, to wife him. You know what I'm saying? Because she can speak that language. And it came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Philcol, the chief captain of the host, of his host, spake unto Abraham, saying, God is with thee in all that thou doest. Now he see how Abraham prospers because he keep the commandments. He does what thus said the Lord. Now you got to look at that too. That he let that son go. He didn't want to, at first, but he listened to it. The Lord said, you gotta let him go. He ain't gonna be heir. Listen to your wife on that point. Verse 23. Now therefore swear unto me here by God that thou wilt not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with my son's son, but according to the kindness that I have done unto thee. This is what Abimelech is saying. to Abraham, thou shalt do unto me and to the land wherein thou hast sojourned, where you stayed, you know. And Abraham said, I will swear. He said, I'll swear I make it, you know, I would, you know, we'll deal with each other accordingly. Verse 25, and Abraham reproved Abimelech. He had to correct him, you know, because of a well of water which Abimelech's servants have violently taken away. So now he let him know, hey, look, your peoples came here and took something from us. You know what I'm saying? This was ours, and your people came and took something from us, you know. Verse 26, and Abimelech said, I wot not who had done this thing. So Abimelech said, I don't know who did this. You know, I'm not aware of it. Neither did thou tell me, neither yet heard I of it, but today. This is the first time I'm hearing this. That's what he's saying. And Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them unto Abimelech, and both of them made a covenant. Okay, so he made a covenant with each other because he dwelled there in the land with them. You know, that way they got peace and, you know, because they're going to have to deal with each other. You're going to have to trade and you know, buy stuff. You know, Abraham got servants and stuff. Abimelech, he's a king there. He got servants and stuff. So, you know, they want to make sure they you know, you in the land, you're dealing with each other. It's like we got our next door neighbors, they of a different nation. You may have some, you know, you got some kind of common grounds where y'all cool at, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, everything's peace, you know, amongst y'all, you know? That's why the scripture said, live peaceably among all men, you know what I'm saying? Romans 12 and 18, right? And Abraham, let me see here, verse 28, and Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, what mean these 7 ewe lambs which thou hast set by themselves? He's asking him, you know, why you know, what are you doing? What does this mean? And he said, for these 7 ewe lambs shalt thou take of my hand, that they may be a witness unto me that I have digged this well. He said, this well here is mine right here. Hey, you know, that way you know what I'm saying? Hey, this is my property. This is my well. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna give you these ewe lambs and trade of it, you know. 31, wherefore he called that place Beersheba, because there they swear both of them, right? Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech rose up and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, and they returned into the land of the Philistines, right? So just, you know, I'm just gonna run it right back again. So that same Beersheba, that same place where Hagar and Ishmael, where Ishmael was at, where, you know, where the angel spoke to Hagar and Ishmael was dehydrated. You know what I'm saying? This is where that well was at. That same well was where she got water at and where she had drank. So this is that same spot, the same place that was Abraham's well. Okay? All right, so that was in Beersheba. I'm going to transition it back. Verse 33 again. And Abraham planted verse 33. And Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. Okay? You know, let him know he planted some trees there, okay? That's like a grove is, like a tree. So he put some trees there, you know, in that area. You know, where you can go get shade, get water, and, you know, who knows, could have been some fruit trees, I don't know. Verse 34, and Abraham sojourned in the Philistines' land many days. So that's where he dwelt at, you know. So hope y'all gained something, you know what I'm saying, here with the history in the AM, you know. Again, you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna give you the titles. We read Genesis chapter 18, Abraham entertained the 3 angels. Genesis chapter 19, Lot is sent for safety into the mountains. Genesis chapter 20, Abimelech takes Sarah from Abraham. And Genesis chapter 21, Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son. Okay? And, you know, again, my name is Officer Nahum. You know, this is History in the AM. You know, hope you all gain something and glean something from it. You know, all praises to the Most High. Hey, with that, everybody, hey, that's my time. Say shalom. Most High in Christ bless. Lord's will catch you on the next lessons, okay? Alrighty. So again, before I go again, the title of it is Abraham Our father Abraham, Genesis chapter 18 through 21. Okay, that's the main title of the whole lesson. Okay, so with that, everybody, I say, hey, shalom, Most High in Christ bless. All right, all praises, shalom.